Hey
All
Andre, how
right.
you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
Man, I'm living life in my basement. Check it out.
Oh, nice. I have to say, man, just huge fucking fan of the show. I never thought I would be able to talk to you. This is great.
Well, here we are. I'm a little overwhelmed because Andre, you're like younger than my kids. What the hell?
Well, let's see. I don't know. Okay, so I'm 32, but I look younger.
Yeah,
I
you.
don't know if that's closer or further away from the age of your kids.
That's what I'll say it. You're just a couple. You're just a
I don't want
little
to
bit
out you.
older. You're just a little bit older. But when Farscape
Okay.
came on, you were still trying to learn to read.
Well, I was the age that I probably wouldn't have watched naturally, but I do remember when it was on TV and
Yeah.
like
No, I wouldn't have
uh
let you. I wouldn't have let you watch it if you were in my house at the
no,
age that you were then. But I thank
it's
you for
far too
liking the
kinky
show.
for a 12-year-old.
There's a bit.
Um,
There's a bit that you're kind of like, is he ready for this yet? You know.
yeah.
Then again, it
Uh,
may have made you the man that you are today, or the person that you
no,
are
actually,
today.
it's not wrong. There's a lot of stuff in there that I just now started unpacking in my life. Just like things of maturity and all that.
You're welcome for that. I'm sorry. it's,
I wouldn't have it any other way, Ben. Seriously.
it's
Uh,
like I just realized how insane my life is.
yeah, you know what? It's all because of your show.
I'm
It's
just,
not even Star Trek. It's all been Farscape.
bro.
So,
I'm just trying to provide context for your insanity. It's all good.
so I got a few questions, and
Yep.
I hope that I'll have enough time for them. So I'm going to get into the ones that hopefully will interest you the most, but I've been really wanting to ask you for a long time. There's this feeling of Farscape of gleeful anti-establishment that like it definitely hits that rhythm. I would say like later in season one, like once you get everything going with Scorpius and like the whole cavalcade of characters, the chemistry between you and the other like regular cast members, returning guests, there's just something so natural about this chaotic energy that you all have. Do you remember if there was any point during the show where you kind of just like ran with that and tried to sneak something in, like a line, joke, maybe like a gag, or maybe even something that just ended up getting cut out? I don't know if you thought about like stealing some props or something like that. Just something mischievous or something
Bro,
like
things
that.
like that happen all the time on the show where something would turn up. I don't know how, I mean, well, like simple things like season two, won't get fooled again. The bad guy shows up wearing Dorothy's slippers and carrying a dog. That wasn't in the script.
No.
It's like, hey, come along, Toto. There was a kind of chaotic off. We went way off into the woods sometimes. Story wise, we went rogue
Mhm.
on occasions, and most times it worked really well. Sometimes it just failed gloriously. But we were given the creative freedom because sci-fi was trying to build a brand. When the show started, we only had 50% coverage. It was only available to 50% of the United States, and
Mhm.
so Farscape being different meant that somebody picked up the phone and called their friend and said, "Have you seen this show? I'll send you the tapes." And then they're asking their cable provider, "Hey, I need sci-fi so I can get it on Friday night and not have to get a VHS tape from my friend." And we were sci-fi allowed us to go off into the weeds. Sci-fi allowed us to do long arc storytelling, which was atypical for that time. It was kind of wedge entertainment, and the show was transitional, not just for science fiction, but in large part for television writ large. That in order to understand what's going on in episode 20, you need to see a
Mhm.
good chunk of episodes 1 through
Yeah.
19. That wasn't standard television at the time.
Yeah.
So, so us doing things that uh, were not approved per se was
Hmm.
we were anti-establishment, and the
Yeah,
Australians are very anti-establishment. So we had the
that
benefit of shooting in Australia. We had the benefit of pilfering the Australian talent base relentlessly.
mhm.
All those tremendous actors that came on the show. You know,
Yeah.
we had an opportunity there to utilize things that most people didn't have access to or the permission to
Okay.
do.
Yeah, there's a very like DIY Mad Max vibe to the whole thing, like in terms of
Oh
the
yeah,
attitude towards
yeah,
the
yeah,
show,
yeah.
not like
Yeah, and
um
that was that was the nature of Australian filmmaking. The
mhm.
Mad Max was seminal to the way they do things. It's like you'd say, "Hey, can we do this?" And they go, "Yeah, she'll be right, mate." And you're like, "Oh, here we
Why
go."
not? Yeah, there's only one way to find out. It's like to start rolling and to just try it out.
Yeah,
If it doesn't work, it doesn't
there's
work.
yeah. I mean, it helps that you have somebody that's maybe pulling the reins back occasionally, but I don't think you get to anything interesting without an element of risk and without working your ass off at it. And we
Yeah.
had an amazingly dedicated crew and cast, and we embraced the idea of taking risk in the storytelling process.
That feeling, like the beginning part of my question definitely comes across in virtually every single episode, all the way through to the miniseries finale. And okay, so I'm going to pivot a little bit, but this is slightly related because this is also a science fiction question. So, as most Farscape fans know, you and Claudia Black also joined the crew of SG-1 in the last couple of seasons. There's a common denominator between SG-1 and one of my favorite shows that isn't also just Farscape, and that's Twin Peaks. So, you
Yeah.
and Don S. Davis did work together for at least a couple of seasons on SG-1. Do you have a history with Twin Peaks at all? It's just past the February 24th, which is the seminal day that Agent Cooper enters the town. And since it just happened, it just kind of crossed my mind. I was just curious if you're a fan or if you ever talked to Don about his experiences on the show.
I watched as much of Twin Peaks as I could when it originally aired.
Hmm.
Um, on a giant 19-inch TV. I haven't revisited it, which is interesting. That show was that show was groundbreaking in the style of storytelling. It was absolutely new for that era. Um, but I never talked to Don about it, and I hadn't really thought about the connection between Farscape and Twin Peaks until you brought it up, and I think that's a very
Ah,
astute observation. And I mean,
yeah.
obviously Don was a lovely guy and a tremendous presence, and
He really seems like he would
missed.
would have been a great person to know. And
Yeah, he's just a guy that you just want to hang out with.
I've been rewatching a lot of season one leading up to this, and there's some Twin Peaks stuff that I noticed,
Mm.
like Twin Peaks stuff, as in just vaguely related things, like with your character talking into a tape recorder to people that he doesn't know if
Mm.
they're going to get the tapes or not, like Agent Cooper talking to
Yeah.
Diane. Some of the off the rails episodes, especially the one that you wrote for season four, John Quixote,
Yeah.
which if we had a little bit more time, well, maybe you can give me like a quick story on like how that came about, like how long that was brewing for, and
Uh, that had been brewing for me probably since I saw Tron. But the video game industry
okay.
was only just starting to make inroads. We were still playing video games on PCs, and there were a few games that I thought, oh, this is really an interesting way into the sort of you're trapped in an alternate universe story.
Mhm.
Because I just thought, which is why it has a bit of that 8-bit feel to it, right? There's a lot of sort
Mhm.
of 8-bit references and in the way
Yeah.
it looks. I just at the time I'm still wondering where video game storytelling is going to go. Um,
Mhm.
because the infinite branching trees of it, the ability to tell a story which is nonlinear, and so I was just fascinated with being thrown into that world, and also the part of the story which is about revealing how dangerous it is for Crichton to care about Aaron. That it plays on the themes of the show, but
Hmm.
it's also I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of video games. And I'm constantly looking to go, how is this technology going to enable us? So it was dabbling in that, which influenced why I told that story that way.
Okay. Um,
Yeah,
and
I'm a bit of a
just a
geek. Is what I'm trying to say
yeah,
is I'm a bit of a geek.
that's
That I
that's
was playing
perfect.
like RPG games long time ago, and the first double floppy disk games that came out that were like RPG games.
Mhm.
We're literally talking about stick figures, and you're playing them. I played the original Zork, which was just
Oh
text
yeah.
based.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a tremendous intersection between those games. And I mean, look how many of those games are now being adapted as films or series. Yeah, and it's just another way to torture John and to torture you, the audience.
The best person to know how to torture John is usually the person portraying him. So that's kind of a perfect insight.
To a degree, yeah. But really,
Yeah.
it's also what's the thing that sometimes people miss is that this is really a Stark story. This is told from the
Hmm.
perspective of Stark in his deepest, darkest feelings about John.
Yeah.
You
Um,
know. So you got a story told by a madman, right?
the perspective shifts a little bit, mostly near the end of the episode. But for people
Yeah,
who are watching this that have not seen the show yet, which just want to respect the spoiler
it's
wall.
25 years. If they haven't gotten to it now, then
Yeah,
spoiler. It's
yeah,
impossible to avoid spoilers like we used to do back in the day. But
yeah.
I have
Uh,
this. Imagine if you were living your life and you had to live a day of your life from the perspective of your mother. It's
that
like,
sounds like a nightmare.
yeah, right, but this is where it gets kind of twisted and interesting. It's like, so I'm now living in my mother's reality. You know, my mom thinks this about me. She thinks I'm actually interested in this. You know, so there's the. I just think it's just a storytelling. I think now I want to go away and write that story where the hero is dropped into his mother's reality,
Well,
or his
let's see.
girlfriend's or boyfriend's reality, or whatever it is. To see the world that you think you inhabit, and then have it thrown back at you from someone else's perspective is kind of interesting.
Well, I wish I had so much more time with you, Ben, but just to quickly wrap up, we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of Farscape, the original series. I believe the new Blu-ray set is out now, came out this past November. If you don't have it, you should get it because it's probably the most definitive version that we're ever going to get. And it's got a lot of stuff on it. Yeah, I just want to thank you so much, Ben, for talking with me. And if you ever come through Seattle, I would love to meet with you again, maybe have a longer conversation.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. Thank you for being inside Moya and joining me in my basement.